Welcome everybody to Passive House Accelerator Construction Tech. We're really excited for the show today. This is the first of two installments. So this is the Construction Tech installment, and tomorrow will be the happy hour installment. Tonight, we're going to hear from Mario Bissessar from Cityline Interiors, Inc. about this single unit retrofit in a historic multifamily building in New York. And tomorrow we'll hear, and so we're going to hear the technical and the technique and the technology behind the construction of this retrofit. And then tomorrow we'll hear from Jane Sanders about the same project, and we'll be focusing on the design. So the Passive House Accelerator is a collaborative online platform for sharing innovation and thought leadership in passive house design and construction. We publish articles and interviews, produce weekly virtual confabs from passive house pioneers from around the world, and elevate the work and programming of the passive house movement's leaders, practitioners, and organizations through interviews, articles, social media campaigns, video, and podcasts. Our aim is to catalyze zero carbon building by accelerating the adoption of passive house building. With our co-hosts, Kevin Brennan, Shannon Pendleton, Sean St. Amour, and Mark Willey, we produce Construction Tech Tuesday to share the technical, the technique, and the technology of passive house construction. Each week, we welcome guest practitioners to dive into the details of practice with the builder and tradesperson as our target audience. We welcome folks from all corners of the construction and design world to join us each week, and we're really happy you're here with us tonight. Thank you.
Well, welcome to the show, Tech Tuesday. I'm Kevin Brennan. I'm here in New York City. I own and operate Brennan Insulation and Airtightness. I'm very proud to invite Mario to the show, who has a very similar upbringing as myself. You know, he was a former insulation contractor working in the field, working his way through, and then learned about passive house by getting involved in projects very similar to myself. And then found the need to open up his own business and got his way working with a great architecture firm, learning about passive house, working on projects like Jane's. And it's going to be a great show. So I'm looking forward to it. The run through is great. It's a very innovative approach towards passive house, being a single unit in a co-op condo kind of building or so. I think it's a great opportunity to show what passive house could be. And it's outside of the norm of regular deep energy retrofits. So on that note, I'm going to kick it back to Shannon and get it rolling.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you, Zach, and thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. I'm Shannon Pendleton, designer and passive house consultant at Sanders and Design, zooming in from New Hope on the East Coast, as usual. And I want to remind everybody to open the chat and grab yourself a nice beverage while you get ready for this wonderful presentation from Mario. He is a gifted guy, and he has a knack for not only teaching his crew building science, but giving them really fun nicknames, which is always good for team building. So thank you, Mario, for joining us tonight. And I'll hand it over to, it looks like Sean St. Stepcode over there.
Hey, good evening. Hey, this is Sean St. Stepcode from Vancouver, British Columbia. And we're experiencing a Chinook tonight. So it's a tough condition. Anywho, I'm happy to be here and enjoying the presentation. I'm pretty shaken up right now because the conference in New York allowed a lot of amazing individuals to get together and experience in-person meetings and dive in over dinner and talk building science. So I haven't quite recovered from that. I know you guys all had a sobering experience, and I look forward to tonight's presentation.
I'll jump in and just say how wonderful it was to see this community in person. I got to meet Shannon for the first time in person, and she had her mask on during the conference. And then she opened her voice, and I was like, "Oh, that's Shannon's voice!" And I was excited. We had a good time catching up, and it was great to see Zach and Michael and the rest of the crew. And it was a great experience being at the conference, getting people together. I was able to meet Norm as well, which was awesome. And his presentation was great at the conference. And I hope that we get more and more people together as we get more and more comfortable being in crowds and groups. And it's what we need to do as a human race to share and to get things going. So thank you. And we'll kick it to Mario. So this is a two-part series. Tonight is the technical, the Tuesday. Bring your questions, start asking about which product to use, where their challenges were. And please put your questions in the chat with a Q, and Shannon will kick it off after the presentation's done. And then please tune in tomorrow for Jane's presentation on the same project that's going to go in a little more in the design side. So it's going to be a fun experience if you can make both days. If not, catch it on YouTube. Don't forget to like either. All right, Mario, you're up.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Shannon. Thanks, Kevin. I'm truly blessed and honored to be part of this show here, and be presenting this one-of-a-kind project, a retrofit co-op apartment. But it was, for the last, I would say, the last 6 months or 5 months, it's been a wonderful experience. Working with the team from Scott Henson, Jane Sanders from Scott Henson, myself, CD Line Interiors, and the guys, my supervisor, and Ryan, Navin. Just want to give a shout out to them and the other guys there. So just want a little bit about myself, an introduction about myself. So I've been in construction industry for about 18 plus years. 8 of those years in and out of the passive house industry. Fortunate for me, I've been working with some professionals that from like Jane Sanders, from Scott Henson, Jeremy Shannon, one of the first builders and retrofit passive house in Brooklyn, and others. So a little bit about City Line Interiors. We're based out in New York here. We focus work more in Brooklyn, Manhattan area, Harlem area. So City Line Interiors is pretty young. We have a lot more to learn, and they've been around for 4 or 5 years. We been established since 2016. So after my I've worked for Brooklyn Insulation and Soundproofing. I have like 3 years with them, and then I have another 3 years with Builder Prospect. That was Jeremy Shannon. So about 6 years of experience in the with dealing passive house, air tightness, installation, air sealing, those kind of things there. A wonderful project, one of a kind, Albemarle retrofit project here. So again, City Line Interiors been around, a pretty young company. We're still learning, as I mentioned. But my experience and comes with I have worked with Jeremy Shannon and Builder Prospect, so forth. So I'm a little shake, so you gotta bear with me here just to get warm up a little bit. So I'll get right into it here. So let's do this. I'll hear my past experience. Mentioned again, Brooklyn Insulation and Soundproofing. A project manager as with Builder Prospect, Jeremy Shannon there. City Line Interiors was founded in 2016. Right after Build Prospect closed shop. It was unfortunate. I enjoy working with that company, but I decided not to give another 4 or 5 years of my time, but to start my own company and take it from there. So again, here are some past project as a project manager supervisor. This is on Bergen Street. Jane Sanders was one of my this townhouse was one of my first opportunity was given to me as a supervisor, and I made use of it at that time. So again, this was one of my first project that was given to me as a supervisor, project manager. Secondly, it was another townhouse in Harlem, Jeffrey Murphy from MMB Architects. And that also, run about a year, I believe, that project. And that was pretty much my last project as a manager, project supervisor, project manager. A couple of things I want to talk about tonight about the Albemarle project. here are three main elements that makes up a passive house, other than the mechanical system and the solar, all those other things that Jane is going to be talking about later on tomorrow's episode. So ideally, I'm going to be talking about what went on in this project here. You will notice on the third floor, the windows are slightly different there. So that's where that project is located, on the third floor. Heading into it. So three things I wanted to talk about is the insulation, air sealing, and windows, and what really went down in this project. So here's a picture of the before, prior to getting started, went and take some pictures there. And right after it's been gutted. So it's a fully gutted 1,400 square foot apartment, down to the bones. Everything has been exposed. And here are some before and after pictures. We're going to be talking about a lot of insulation, air sealing, things that I encounter about air sealing, and the windows generally. So here, first we're going to start with installation. So as you notice, there's a lot of insulation went into this project in the floors, ceiling, exterior wall, and within the partition walls also. So we use about 9+ inches within the floor cavity. We use the rock wall 6-inch plus 3.5 inches of insulation within the floor cavity. And also this here, a small challenge, it's just time consuming, cutting all of the insulation, pretty much every single insulation needed to be cut to fit between the joists here, ranging from anywhere from 9 to 14 inches, I believe. So again, it's a lot of insulation and time consuming work. So we had to put in the time there and get it right for sure. Here you can see there's two things going on in this area here. It's the cavity rock. I want to talk a little bit about that, what went down with the cavity rock, and share some insight what happened. So we use 3-inch, I believe 3 inches of cavity rock on the exterior wall. And we had a system put together, which you will notice we used an insulation pin, and we were given a adhesive to adhere that to the wall, which we thought at first would have worked well to hold that insulation in place. However, the very next day, after putting the wall together, putting up all the insulation, we came back the very next day and found about a third of our insulation on the ground. You can imagine how bummed out and not excited I was at the time. So some creativity from my guys in order for us to make this work, to keep it up temporarily, at least until the Intello, the membrane go over it to hold it in place. So as you can notice here, right there, these yellow lines on that insulation there, you may wonder what's that. So that there are some strings my guys had to put together temporarily to put it in place and hold it in place there until we could have get the Intello over it and put the frame up. So that we had to just put our couple cents together and come up with something temporary that will hold it in place. Another thing I wanted to talk about was the Persico liquid, that orange wall there, and that was fun working with, I believe, or not so fun. At least I got my hand on it, rolling on it. So the story behind this, Persico, whoever works with it, it's a very heavy product, thick and heavy, I will say, and I'll say a little tough to work with because I get my hand on it and it wasn't easy. So starting off with, two of my guys were rolling that wall, all the exterior walls and the party wall, and yeah, it wasn't fun. I realized the guys were they were spending a lot of time. The two guys that I put to roll that liquid on, they were struggling. Yeah, they were struggling to roll that, get that nice thick coat on it. So, however, I realized that I needed I needed more manpower. So I have this one guy that I call the muscle. You know, I had to call in the cavalry. I'll say so. He came in just within that one day, where my two guys were just doing one wall within the day. This guy just came in one day and rolled the hell out of that, you know, the walls, exterior walls, and it was like a walk in the park for him. While I get my hand on it, it was tough. I couldn't even roll it. But while this guy was rolling it, he broke 2 pin stick in the process. So you could imagine the strength that was going in there. He was just going at it, and within a matter of time, he, you know, get the walls covered while my guys, the other guys, went through with the brush touching up. So that was not so much fun, but it was somewhat fun watching, you know, how the guys were approaching and rolling on that Proseco R-Guard there. Next, I'll talk about more air sealing here. So this one, somewhat I want to stress about. Air sealing is not just about pulling straight seams, making it just look uniform. I would like to stress about saying it takes a lot of effort and time. One main word that I stress is patience. To my guys and anyone else that, you know, that I talk to, it takes a lot of patience working on the air tightness, especially taping around tight corners. You can see these duct works here, especially this area here. That's some serious timing and patience went in there. Not everybody have the patience to spend and you know, to accomplish that air tightness for sure. So that's one thing when I get on this project, I stress to my guys that listen, we need to spend a lot of time and be patient when it comes to air sealing. Otherwise, we're not going to get it right. And at the end, you know, we're not going to accomplish that magical number. So that was something I wanted to stress about when it comes to taping, you know, applying yourself and be creative in terms of using different techniques. So here you can see we tape along some steel beams. We had to tape on the floors. We've taped onto the Proseco liquid membrane. First, I did test the tape out on that liquid membrane just to make sure it's adhering properly before we, you know, we use that Vanna tape. So that worked well and held up there. So we'll move on to windows. So generally, we use icon windows here on this project. And I will say the window by itself, it wasn't no issue at all installing the window, doing the installation at all. We have installed several, probably about 200 windows, high performance windows overall. So there's nothing crazy about installing the windows. However, particularly for this window and this project here, in regards to the finishes around the window, we encounter some problems, a slight issue when it comes to the finishes. I'll get into that a little more. So ideally, you could see we did some prep work on the window sill here, building it up with some parch coat just to any potential water will just flow out back outside and not inside. And here you see a 475 product. We use the Exo Seal flash in for the window sill there, that panning there. And we have some blocking going on, a lot of blocking, like 4 blockings per an end per side. So here was a little bit of challenge for installing, getting these blockings right. So we had used some stainless steel anchors on to anchor these blocking. The blocking was prepped with some other 475 tape there. wrapped it around prior to installing and anchoring it. However, at the time we were anchoring the blocking onto the masonry, we found out that if you notice on the lower corner on your left side here, one blocking is lower than the other. On the right hand side, there was a reason for that. We couldn't kept it consistently. It will just crack and open. At the time we installed it, it was just crack and open the masonite. It would not be sturdy and firm as we wanted to. So we had to move it, every other block to get it installed for it to sit firm. So that it was a total of 10 windows. So that was one of the issue. We spent a little bit of time getting it right. So I wanted to get in a little more about this window, particularly the finishes. The issue was us getting the finishes around the window right, prepping for the finishes. So generally, the window did not allow us to, ideally you will install a 5/8 drywall or some sort of wood panel around it, which is an average 5/8 to 3/4 of an inch thick. And in this case, we were only able to install a 1/4 inch of a hardy backer. We had to improvise and come up with this because we would have not been able to install a regular 5/8, even a 1/2 inch sheetrock. We did not want to use a 1/4 inch sheetrock. It's just too weak and wobbly. So we had to use something more rigid, that's why we use a hardy backer there. We'll get into that a little more in the next picture for sure. Up here, we try a different product. Jane is going to be talking a little more about this tomorrow. Polyiso, it's a rigid insulation. I think we talk about using it going in any future project instead of the wood blocking. It accepts screws and anchor properly. It's a pretty firm insulation for thermal purpose versus the wood that we use, 2x4s. Here, you can see we did in the panning outside on the right side, we did some insulation, some rigid insulation on that. We taped the outside of the window with a Contiga, I believe, I can't remember the name of that tape there. Sure, we're gonna get to that. But yes, there you can see the panning, you can see the insulation we get within the panning on the exterior wall, and again, a lot of insulation within the window. We use the rock wool, mineral wool there around the windows. Where we couldn't use that, we had to spray foam above the windows in very tight spots up above. So here's where you're going to see that hardy backer and the space that's limited in regards to the the windows being operable. So ideally, we left after installing that 1/4 inch hardy backer, we left with I'll always say about 3/8 of an inch space around the window. Anything more than that, the window would have not been operable. So speaking of that, if we had been given, let's say, about another 3/8 of an inch, we would have been fine, and we could have probably used a 5/8, and not spend the amount of time that we spent around this window in terms of preparing for it. So those are my 3 challenges what I encountered on this project here generally, and you can see the finishes, the final product there. Throughout on that one window on that corner. And here the end game, we have the blower door. And we have a couple of guys, including myself, smiling behind those masks. There's a reason behind those smile. You may not see it, but you can see the eyes are pretty wide, maybe I'll say. That's because we hit the number we wanted to hit on the very first rung, and we were just excited. And after tightening up a few areas around the windows, some pipings that was left open, we had to tape it off. And then the number just dropped a little more. So that was the end game. This is those smiley faces there is what we've been working towards. I will say, all the effort, all the timing and preparation we've been putting into this project. One other thing I wanted to stress, you will notice some blue tapes on the floor and the plywood here that we tape all the seams there. So a little bit of work went into this. Also, we had to coordinate ourselves properly and not to get the tape damaged. So this floor was taped the day prior to the blower door testing. And given that, just to stress a little bit, it takes a little bit of coordination. Right after the blower door test, we had to put masonite down and protect the floor, protect the tape precisely, to be precise, protect the vinyl tape, Descon tape, so we can get the drywall guys to finish up their drywalls prior to installing the floor. So we had to lift up back the masonite and then get the flooring guys, then put them back the masonite. So it's a little bit of coordination when it comes to taping and being patient about everything throughout. But generally speaking, this project, I think overall was a walk in the park for me. Based on my previous experience on a 3 or 4 story townhouse. So I think generally everything else went well for this project, and it was a great experience working with the crew, included Jane Sanders from Scott Hansen Architect, also Jackson, the owner, really cool guy to work with. Everybody was just part of it, just putting this project together. So with that being said, I am grateful and thankful for giving the opportunity to present here and also being part of this project. And that's it, guys. That's all I have. I'll hand it over back to you guys.
Excellent, Mario. Again, I apologize for being late. I had to put a parenting hat on, but I did get it all. And again, great stuff. Love the insight of how to making a box airtight. And I know there's some great questions coming up here, but I think we should just stop and give you a big cheers. I know you just had a sip of water, but hold on to that glass, because if everyone wants to unmute for a second, let's give Mario and the rest of the team, I know Jane and Jackson, I believe, are here, to this entire project. Cheers to everybody.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Nice work.
Cheers. Good job, Mario.
Thank you.
Done.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Mario, we got to ask you, what was your blower door test results on your first number? What were the numbers?
First number was, I believe 200 to be precise, where we wanted to be. Checking in CFM, if here, Jane will be more precise in the technical term. And then we were like at 176. I believe that is equivalent to 0.9, if I'm correct.
Yeah,
And,
0.9.
yeah, 0.9?
Yeah, which is not easy on such a small volume of space.
There you go.
Right, and it's an existing building. What is the square footage?
The square footage for that building was 1,400 square feet. To be
Congratulations.
precise, plus or minus.
And the ceiling height's about 8'4" to 8'6". So yeah, the volume's pretty small.
Yeah, so it's one thing that the differentiator between PHI and FIAS certifications is PHI goes towards a volume ACH at 50 number, and FIAS goes to a permeance number, a Q50 number. And with smaller spaces and smaller volumes, and it tends to be a little bit more accurate on the permanence number. But the ACH number is more universal towards like regular sized buildings or so. So you had a challenge there of smaller buildings. I know when we teach the tradesperson course, it's always very, very tough to get a 200 square foot building to be 0.6 air changes per hour. And that's one of the lessons of like, but the permeance number is very good. We're at 0.03, 0.02. So they're good. They go hand in hand. And, it's what we do on the show. We nerd out and I explain things a little too deep. So let's get to the questions.
Thanks, Kevin. We have a couple questions in here. The first one is, well, I want to mention Reed Rowland's comments first, because Reed, if you're available and you want to unmute, maybe you can share with Mario some of your experience with Prosecco, since he broke 3 separate paint sticks with the muscle.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, Cat 5 is thick. And then try rolling it maybe in the wintertime. That's even more brutal.
Oh, it might be that's the case, I guess, because we were late in December. Yeah, I think that was the case somewhere in December, if I'm correct. Or
no,
maybe
absolutely. That didn't help your
November,
case.
maybe November.
But recently, Prosecco came out with what they call a sprayable Cat 5.
That's what I heard.
It's easier to roll. And to be honest, there's not a lot of people going to spray this just because it's like a $10,000 spray machine. It still takes a lot of oomph to spray Cat 5 sprayable. So it's for somebody that does it for a living, and that's what they do. But rolling it, it's definitely easier. And you know, it doesn't hurt to keep it in a warm area and then bring it out in the cold if you're doing it in the winter. But good.
Thanks, Reed.
One other piece of advice is, like, I have a hot box for my my foam sets
Yep.
that I use
Yep.
every once in a while, and then keeping the buckets above 70, 80 degrees would be helpful. Other manufacturers like Henry have an STP product, and their sprayer, you know, same thing, needs to be 35 to 4,000 psi, but they also recommend heating the product before spraying it and keeping it at that temperature. So as I've never used the Prosecco product, but I've used other manufacturers you know, STP products, and they're like silicone, so that once they get cold, you know, they're very viscous and thick. So just little tricks to the trade. But
Yep,
I
absolutely.
think it's important that you bring up the fact that you had a challenge and you worked with, what was it you called, the monster to overcome it, right?
The muscle.
The muscle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're a very tough guy, you know, come in and just run around and get it out of the way. I tried it, and I give up within the first 5-10 seconds.
In Chicago, we're known to keep a lot of our products in coolers so that they don't experience the temper differentiation there that goes on. So I really applaud the fact that you powered through it. Again, with the muscle is perfect. Thanks for sharing that.
I mean, I would like to add, I think personally, every team need that muscle in their team, you know, that backup, I think, personally.
Mario, before we go into any more questions, we did ask you if there was someone out there who kind of shepherded your education along the way or motivated you at a young age, or you know, even last week. Is there someone out there that is a mentor to you that you'd like to thank?
Yeah, it's a long story. It's a long story to share. Interesting story. I'll find. You know, coming up in this industry, I started at a very young age. I would say age 19 to be precise. And you know, maybe it will probably take about 2-3 minutes. Maybe hopefully I can give you a quick rundown about it. So you know, I migrated to this country. Still in my teenager years, at the age of 19, my parents brought us over, and we, myself particularly, had to, you know, grow up fast, like grow up really fast. So I end up getting into the construction industry and realized that this is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life and making a living out of it. So I end up loving what I do, and I made something out of it. So you know, from a janitor cleaning up right up to owner for City Line Interiors, you know, and a lot of things went into this here. After giving several years to different companies, I realized that we were getting dropped from companies, or the company will close. So I realized I cannot do this anymore, because I don't know what sort of future lies ahead if I kept on bouncing around, spending a couple of 3 years, 2 years, or 4 years here and there, a different company. So at the time, prior to opening up City Line, I sat with my wife, and we talk about it. You know, we had the network. I had known some people out there, put it, that they had some connections. I spoke to my wife and I told her, hey, this is where I think we should go, or what I want to do. And she, you know, she gave me that extra push. We had some savings and we give it a go, you know, and it worked for us. I will say in this life, just to take some chances and don't be scared at all. So given the fact that I was fortunate enough to work with professionals in different trade areas, from carpentry, painting, to designers, architects, so forth, I was fortunate enough work along with them, and that's how all of this started. So talk about the American dream. It is live and well, to be frank, and that's pretty much it there, I think. So yes, that's pretty much it. Just a small part of it.
I love that. That's the American dream story. And I also love that you took the initiative and you put the responsibility for your work in your own hands, and then made yourself responsible for other people, right? Your crew is now counting on you to keep them around. It looks like it's working, Mario.
Yeah, it is working. We have a total about, if I'm correct, about seven of us, to be precise, 7 or 8. I'm not losing count. And prior to this particular project, I was the only one coming in with the experience at the time as a tradesperson in the passive house. And I sat with my crew probably a week prior to starting this project, and we looked through a lot of videos. We looked through even some drawings, going through the details in terms of preparing for this project here. And we spent probably about 2 or 3 days on it, looking at videos back and forth, a couple of hours in between. And we did talk a lot about what to expect, what not to expect, to be patient when it comes to this project here, air sealing particularly. So yes, my crew was pretty green going in there, but we did school ourselves in regards to looking at a lot of 475 video. Those guys are doing a really great job of, putting the information out there with their product and so forth. So yeah, we did did a research prior to getting into that project.
I love that. I can kind of picture you guys doing your kickoff meeting around a screen with all the YouTube videos. Like, get ready, you guys. We're going to do some serious air sealing.
Yeah. A weekend gathering kind of thing, Friday evening or Saturday afternoon, those kind of things there. And the guys came out and we did our research.
Thanks, Mario. We have some other questions for you. Tom Phillips, if you're still with us, would you like to unmute and ask your question? I was asking about the fumes on the sealants, and there were some comments in the chat that responded to that. But Mario, did you experience when you were working with some of these products, since Reed was kind enough to mention their declare label listed, many of them, how was it for you working with Passive House products? In terms of fumes and experiencing those building products?
If we're speaking generally, all the products that we use, if we're talking about the Proseco, we're talking about Rockwell, we're talking about the 475 product. To be honest, it was probably close to winter, our nose was just stuffed up. We couldn't I didn't get any sense of in terms of fumes there. We did, get our PPE, mask up in terms of insulation and handling the insulation, the ears, the tape and so forth. I don't think there was anything that was bothering us in terms of, the fume, so forth. We were just pretty much protected with our PPE.
Nice, thank you. All right, well, after Patrick, what about John Bro from Australia?
Oh yeah, thanks for your for the talk. It's enlightening. I've got a project which I guess you'd classify as NFET, where I've got 2 very long block wall party walls between apartments, and we're only renovating 1 apartment. And the question I have is, when you've got a party wall like that, which is actually dry and interior technically, but the external layer of our apartment, whether the moisture control on a party wall, what you did regarding moisture rather than the air tightness. I get the air tightness, but just with moisture, did you need to manage or do anything with regarding that, or was it completely dry and there was no requirement to do anything?
Okay, well, thanks for that. That's an interesting question. I believe when it comes to that, it's more of a design. When I'll probably pass this on to Jane, she'll be able to specify a little more because she designed the project and we put it together. So Jane may be able to answer that question much better, other than myself.
Yeah, we
Okay.
just use the same Proseco product on the party walls mainly as an air barrier, and there weren't really any moisture issues there.
It was dealing with air tightness rather than moisture.
Right. Yeah. And we insulated the party walls at the corners of the building. We always insulate a few feet in so that you're not getting a cold surface, near the corners of the building. So, we don't insulate against the neighbor, but we insulate the first few feet from the exterior wall going down the party wall.
And we have a question from Ingrid. Ingrid, would you like to unmute and ask your question? She asks, is everyone on a trades crew from the islands? So Mario, now you're responsible for a large population's answer.
Yes, not from an island. We are from the Caribbean, and Guyana is part of CARICOM. Yes, we are Guyanese to be precise, but not from an island. Islands are beautiful, but not Guyana. It's a neighboring country of Brazil, Venezuela, and Suriname.
And Mr. Molinar, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Just wondering how difficult you found it to define the perimeter of the thermal envelope.
For the thermal envelope, so what are we talking about? We talk about using the rock wall. I believe it was cavity rock we had used there. Yes, cavity rock. Just blanking out a little bit, but as I mentioned, we're talking in regards to the thermal insulation for the exterior wall. As I mentioned, it was just a matter of application, and we had used an insulation pin, and which we thought was going to work, but it didn't. Some held up and some didn't. And like I said, the next day we came back, some of it fell off, and we had to improvise and use some strings and tape to keep it up on there until we get the Intello and the frames up. Hopefully that answered your question.
Mario,
Yeah, good.
I can
Go
help
ahead.
out. Sorry, Peter. With as far as the pins not sticking with the adhesive,
Yeah.
because the STP is a silicone-like product, nothing really likes to stick to silicone. That's why it's the release agent for a lot of our tapes. So what I've done in the past is I've used the actual sealant or the fast flash or the product itself as the glue to hold it in. So in that case, I would use the Proseco caulk or the one that works with it. It's the air dam or whichever one that's like a silicone as the glue to hold it in there. And then it has a greater chance of sticking on.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense there. I mean, it's a learning process for us, and I'm sure we're gonna apply ourselves better next project.
You eliminated some of the chai point bridges that were there by holding it on with the string. There's no thermal bridge in the string, but I like this system.
Yeah, we had we were concerned about the pins too, but I mean it's metal, but it was limited. Probably about 4x2. We had to space it, so there was not too much thermal bridging there, like exposing with cool metal.
And then the precision on as an insulation guy yourself, blown in insulation. Did you guys consider using the blown in rock wool in the floor at all?
No, never crossed my mind at all. We were just following the design that was placed in front of us, which was rock wool. I believe it was 9 1/4 inches to be precise, 6 3 3/4 insulation. Yeah, not the blow-in.
Yeah, I guess we thought the joist would be a little more regularly spaced, and be able to use the regular, but in hindsight, because of the irregularity, then you got to bring the equipment in and all of that in an apartment building, but it probably would have been easier than making all those cuts.
Yeah, the third floor insulation machine outside, you'll be fine. But
I mean, talking about insulation machine, it probably would have maybe caused a mess in the apartment downstairs or upstairs too. Probably, when you do these cellulose insulation, you have to do a lot of protection, but it may, if you start blowing, it might have just made a mess up downstairs or upstairs, and then we would have been in hot water or something. I'm sure you're aware of that.
oh yeah, you guys want to, I was blowing insulation and, I was early, like 20 years old. And a lady who I'm blowing insulation in her house comes outside. She's like, sir, can you do me a favor? Can you get my soap? And I'm like, lady, I'm busy out here. I don't understand what you're talking about. And she had this great Irish sense of humor. I'm like, oh, come inside, get the soap. I open up the thing. And she's like, I'm like, oh crap, it's all, the hole underneath the sink was filled with cellulose. I hand her the soap. She's like, I can clean that up. Thanks.
It's all right.
Insulation struggle is real. That's a great one. That was before we had the handy cams, right?
That's what you call Irish persuasion, Kevin. That's how I ask for all my favors too. That's brilliant. All right, Mr. Bob Kelly, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, thanks, Shannon. I was wondering, do the parting walls extend through the roof?
I'll probably pass it on to Jane.
Yeah, they do. I mean, this particular apartment had, was in the third floor, so it had other units above and below. So technically we don't really need the insulation in the floor and the ceiling. However, it really helped with the soundproofing, and we found it helped with the cooling load quite a bit in the PHPP. But yeah, the party walls do go up through the roof. So, that's definitely, if you were doing this in the top floor unit and you're able to address that, they have fairly high parapet walls on these buildings.
How tall is the building?
I think maybe not all
How
of
many
them,
stories?
Right. Yeah. The building is 6 stories, and this one's on the 3rd floor.
Thanks, Jane.
Cool. Thank you.
Well, it's about that time to hand it off to Zach and have him thank our sponsors and get us kicking off into the after hour.
All right. Thank you. Fantastic. This is really great. And the work that we do at the Passive House Accelerator at Construction Tech and tomorrow at Happy Hour, all of it is possible thanks to the support of these fine organizations, these companies that share common purpose and common cause with the Passive House Accelerator. So I want to thank our founding sponsors, 475 High Performance Building Supply, Baxtinque Architects, Mitsubishi Electric Train HVAC US, Partel, Glavel Foam Glass Gravel, Minotaur all-in-one HVAC and dehumidification units, RDH Building Science, Rockwool North America, Stillcorp, and Zola Windows. Our champion sponsor is SIGA, and our stakeholder partner is NYSERDA, the New York State Energy and Research Development Authority. Thanks also to our patron sponsors, Aero Barrier, BR+A Consulting Engineers, Brennan Air Tightness and Insulation, Initech Windows and Doors, and US Engineered Wood T-Stud. All right, so every week we have a new Passive House podcast episode, and this episode is a special interview with co-hosts or guest co-hosts, Mary James and Ilka Cassidy, and they have this great conversation with Melanie Thomas, who is the executive director of the South Baltimore Community Land Trust. They talk about her decision to target Passive House for the trust's initial development of 10 new homes. Great conversation. Please check that out on the podcast. Tomorrow we have Jane Sanders, who will speak about the design of this project that we've been hearing about from Mario today. So it's a great follow-up and complement to the great information we've learned tonight. So please join us tomorrow. Thursday, we are back to our Passive House component spotlights. This will be with Stillcorp. We'll be joined by Thomas Ramele and Zach Veras, and they will present about air and moisture barriers in complete wall systems. So they'll be talking about the importance of detailing, continuity, and sequencing. And as is true for all of our component spotlights, we'll start with their presentation, and we'll be tracking questions during their presentation, and then we will pose those questions to them. You'll have a chance to interact directly with Stillcorp and ask your questions about their products, both the products that they present at the spotlight and other Stillcorp stuff too. So it's very interactive, and we hope you'll join us on Thursday. And then finally, next Thursday, June 24th, we have Centering Equity in Passive House. This is a community workshop that is co-presented by Astrid County and Johnny Rezvani. This is a direct outgrowth of the work of the NAACP Centering Equity in Sustainable Buildings. And we hope you'll join us for that too. And I think that's it for me for announcements. Take it away.